So while we're navigating all of these shifts, again, we have the opportunities to create change around the shifts and to nourish our bodies. And one of the things that I'm talking about in Fearless is nervous system regulation, is the regulation of our vagus nerve. We're constantly living in fight and flight. And when we're in that state, we're not necessarily connected to our bodies. We're not connected to how our bodies are responding because we're so in the doing and not in the being that we don't hear. And it's proven that when we are in a better state of being and when we are nurturing our nervous system, that our health outcomes are so much better.
Welcome, love, to Wild Flow, the podcast for wild and wise women devoted to honoring your body's wisdom, reclaiming your cyclical power, and walking as a feminine leader in life, love, and through your soul work and purpose. I'm Charlotte Puanto, embodiment coach, ritual priestess, menstrual cycle educator, and feminine business mentor, here to guide soul-led women to step forward as their most magical, womb-awakened, authentic, and sovereign selves. On the podcast, we have rich and deep conversations with women I deeply admire who are leading the way in the reclamation of sacred feminine power. Ready for a new episode, my love? Let's flow. Continuing our theme of becoming fearless in perimenopause, today I've got Sinead Quinn on Wild Flow. Sinead is one of our co-hosts at Fearless, our upcoming perimenopause hour retreat that we're co-hosting with Sophie Gleitzman, who we had on the podcast last week. Sinead is a certified meditation teacher, EFT practitioner, Breathwork, and Soulflow embodiment facilitator. She's a speaker on wellness and the profound impact of stress on the body. Sinead brings a multidisciplinary approach to nervous system regulation and trauma healing to support her clients into a deeper understanding of their mind-body connection so they can navigate life with resilience and grace. Sinead's work integrates evidence-based techniques with soulful practices, offering a compassionate and transformative space for healing and growth. Sinead invited me and Sophie to co-create Fearless, our perimenopause retreat, which is upcoming on the 8th of March in the Southern Highlands, as an antidote to the level of fear that is dominating the conversations both here and globally around perimenopause. Something else to fear, something else to distrust, something else to pathologize. We believe that perimenopause is an initiation, it is a reckoning, and it is a time that doesn't need to sound scary. It doesn't need to be intimidating, but it is a time, a rite of passage that we really want to call in the right support for so that we can move through this experience proactively, with care, with intention, with understanding, compassion, and support. Just like you wouldn't give birth, you wouldn't go through pregnancy and give birth without any doing any reading, without doing any classes, without having any support around you or any plan about what you would most like to get out of your birth experience or how to navigate certain situations that come up. Perimenopause is not impending disaster and chaos. However, it is an opportunity to understand and connect with our bodies, to come home to ourselves in ways that we might not have done before. And Sinead really believes that you're more vulnerable to stress in the perimenopause years and the myriad ways that this is showing up in your body. And yet when you have the tools to meet and reduce that stress, you not only feel better in the moment, you can bring more ease and regulation to your everyday, and you can improve your health by changing the composition of the hormones and stress chemicals that are running your body. Sinead is talking to us about meeting the signs of stress, dropping into our body, how to listen and meet what it's telling us. And she's talking to us about a very simple breathwork practice that you can call on when you feel out of control and overwhelmed to reconnect with your body, to come back to regulation. So whether you're there or not yet, we're really inviting you to gather your toolkit, gather support and community, and learn about this in advance. To have imagine this is your preconception care for perimenopause or your pregnancy education classes if you're already in perimenopause. Early action is so important rather than leaving it late and suffering. And it's a real opportunity to reclaim and step fully into our wild feminine power. So enjoy this episode and receive whatever the wisdom is you need to claim today. Hi, Sinead. Welcome to Wild Flow today. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. I'm really excited to chat with you. So before we dive in, we'll start off with a cycle check-in, just so we can land in our bodies and feel into how we are today, and just give everyone an invitation who's listening as well to do the same. So for me, I'll go first. So I'm in my late stage of my menstrual cycle right now. I'm on day 25. So the last few days of this cycle, and just today feeling some tenderness and feeling some like my heart feels quite hot tender today. But I feel quite good energy wise, and I feel really excited and inspired to have this conversation with you. And I think just really I feel really called to speak plainly and speak truthfully as well. Like that's really coming through about this topic and, the absolute importance of this and why we're here to do this. So I'm feeling I'm kind of stepping into that um, challenger energy feels quite alive in me today as well. Um, so where are we at? We're almost at full moon as well. It's a full moon in Leo this week. You wouldn't know it, but the moon is extremely bright in the sky overnight. We've just had so many storms recently that I feel like I can't even see the sky. I haven't really even felt the moon, or even been able to see any of the beautiful planets that have been aligning up over the skies recently. And we're just coming on the other side of Lamass, which we had recently. So we're edging ever closer towards the autumn equinox, which will be not for another month or so. But yeah, starting to feel that real late summer change of pace, change of season, change of weather. And so that, yeah, a bit of a transitional time. And I just feel like that's kind of speaks to me of heightened energies and changes, underlying changes as well. And yeah, just really being with myself and where I'm at for that. So that feels, yeah, like where I'm at. And so, Sinead, just inviting you into a cycle check-in. How are you today? How are you feeling? Whichever seasons or cycles or whatever, where you drop in and notice how you're feeling today. Do you want to share?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned autumn, and I feel like I was writing down some posts for the future breathwork groups, and I was like, oh, we're really entering autumn, fall of the changing of the seasons, the leaves falling, the shedding, and I kind of feel that with a lot of things we're selling our home, moving, letting go of a lot of what we thought we were building and are shifting now into a different gear. And it's been very I just got chills actually. Like just honoring that process of letting go of what we had imagined for quite a while, and then now we're reimagining
Mm.
a new um a new path, and just trying to not be as attached to it. It definitely feels like that. And then with my cycle, I don't keep very close track of my cycle. It's always been a bit all over the place, but my body tells me where I am at. Like if I don't need to look at a calendar, but I can just feel those certain shifts within my body that are happening. Yeah, my body's just telling me a couple of, like, I'm coming up towards my cycle and I can feel that coming up. Like my breasts are getting tender. I'm starting to feel a bit tired, and things like that. So, and I don't, I don't always get, sometimes it can be very seamless and I'm like, oh, surprise. Um, but this month it seems to be, it's giving me some of the signals. So, um, yeah. And it just, I've been trying to honor that. Like yesterday, I did nothing. I binge watched on Netflix because I was like, you know what? I feel really tired. I know that there is literally like 5 loads of laundry, but I'm just gonna honor what my body is telling me right now, that I'm tired and I need some rest, and I'm just gonna allow that. And it felt good. I felt a bit dizzy in the evening because I'd been lying down so long, but it felt good to just allow myself that rest. And especially around when there is a shedding, I think it's really important to allow space for the rest because it's a lot. It's a lot letting go of what we thought and um, navigating the new. So, yeah.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I really hear that. I feel that. Thank you for sharing. Hearing you really respecting the rest that your body needs, and there's that real feeling of letting go. And I love what you said there about releasing what you thought you were building and realizing actually you're being called to build something else and to kind of accept that and walk towards it, which I think is such a gift of, of where we can be at in periods of change instead of clinging on to, to the death of the way things have been or the dreams that we had. And I feel like that's pretty symbolic of perimenopause as well, which we are here to talk about today.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah. So we're just both experiencing a storm. Sinead and I live about half an hour away from each other. So there's a bit of a storm overhead. So just to presence that because it's definitely quite distracting in the background. Oh, so all of this energy alive today in us, both of us in a similar part of our cycle, are both together with this storm passing overhead as well. So, Sinead, Fearless, we're hosting a 1-day retreat with Sophie, who we had last time on the podcast, coming up on March the 8th here in the Southern Highlands, New South Wales, Australia. And I'm so excited for it.
I know,
How are you
same.
feeling?
I am so excited. I think it's just it's so needed. It's so, so needed. When I speak to women that are already in menopause, they have been through it, navigated it, mostly blindfolded. I just think how lucky we are that these conversations are happening now and that people have been advocating for it for the last, I mean, social media, be it good or bad, half the time, it can be both. And what it has gifted us is these like platforms to be able to ignite conversations around topics that are so, so important and life changing, literally life changing for so many women. Like, I can't imagine being almost gagged and not being able to speak about what we're navigating and it all being hush hush and, oh, don't, shh, we don't talk about the change. Um, and yeah, just being able to walk into a doctor's surgery or a naturopath and just say, this is what I'm dealing with and have no shame around it and seek guidance and support. And I'm really excited to be able to provide that for other women and also um, myself. So, yeah, I'm excited. I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to learn from both you and Sophie because like I'm 39, turning 40 this year, and I'm really keen to just set myself up with, knowledge and support and like I'm a menstrual cycle coach. Like, I've got quite a lot of, you know, knowledge about I guess experiencing cycles and change and perimenopause and like really honoring all of that. But hearing from your two perspectives is going to be really powerful for me. And I think that's what's really great about it is that, we're bringing three different perspectives, three different,
Mm.
sets of tools as well that are really going to give people a really well-rounded perspective and just sense of what's coming and what's normal and, what we can do about it instead of feeling like I think so many of us feel like, a kind of victim maybe to our body or to our hormones and like, this is just going to be inevitably dreadful. There's so much fear around perimenopause, I think. And there's, it's always the way that the worst symptoms get all the airtime. Like everyone
Yeah.
will always naturally talk about the horror stories. It's like when we give birth,
Yeah, that was
people always
exactly
talk.
what I was just thinking. My vagina just ripped open.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, well, okay, sure, but that doesn't mean that's going to happen to you.
I know, you
You
tell
know,
people you're pregnant, and it's like one of the first things they say. Oh, well, say goodbye to your vagina, and it's like, no, that's not the that's not what it's not the only option. It's not like if you
totally.
prepare yourself and
Yeah,
you surround yourself with the tools, with the people, with the practitioners that you want to surround yourself with, you can have the most beautiful, you know, honoring experience, and not have your vagina ripped open. So,
totally. And I think that's really what we're bringing here. It's like for the women who are in the midst of it now, and like, maybe like the analogy, like the woman who's pregnant and she's like, like 6, 7 months pregnant, and she's like, oh my gosh, I actually really want to do things differently. Like, what can I call in right now to support myself to have the birth that I want? And also the women who are like on the preconception journey, who are like, well, okay, how can I step into this with care, with thought, like, energetically kind of like really attuning to what I actually want, what is my intention, how can I, move through this the whole way through in the way that I, is really true and honoring of our power, I suppose, and our desire and our safety and our like cultivating trust in our bodies. Like I just think of fearless as being so it's another rite of passage. It's it's
100%.
like, all of our rite of passages that we've lived so far, we have a chance here to whether we've suffered with previous rites of passages, and I mean like, the way we had our first period or the way we experienced childbirth, we have an opportunity here to heal that and reclaim this and make this like, okay, like I didn't love that, what happened. So what can I bring in to empower myself to have this intentional, much more supported process? Yes, it's still going to be hard. Yes, it's still going to be unknown, but I'm supported versus like, just kind of putting our heads in the sand and being a bit in denial about it. Or feeling like, oh, it's okay when I get symptoms, I'll just go see the doctors because actually the doctors aren't fully up to date on all of this. And there's so many more holistic things that we need to bring in to give us answers and understanding and tools that are actually going to be really powerful. And I really love what you're bringing to this, which is, nervous system support, stress support, like being really able to listen to our body's cues and signs that are coming up, like showing us, like, hey, I'm dysregulated or I'm struggling here. And your toolkit is really practical. So I just, yeah, really want to like invite you, Sinead, to speak to um like how you really see your toolkit as being supportive for women to learn and practice at this stage of life.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yes, I think when we hit motherhood, or maybe we're focusing on career, or we're in that transition in our 30s where it's like we're doing, not being, and society as a whole will often praise us for doing and not being. And by not being or by being, I mean being present, listening to our bodies, being aware of our emotions and not just on autopilot and doing and just getting shit done, and we disconnect from our body. You know, when we're born and we're babies, we're very aware and connected with our bodies in a somatic sense. Somatic sense being, you know, that we're our heart, being aware of the heart rate or our breath, or there's no dissociation between our thinking body and our feeling body. And somewhere along the line, we lose that connection. And it's really sad. It is really sad that we lose that connection. And I think in modern day society, where we're constantly distracted with our phones, our laptops, you know, all of the pinging of notifications, it happens even easier. So I remember when I first started doing yoga, and I remember trying to connect with the mula bandha, so your sex organs, you know, um the the mula bandha, for those that aren't familiar, is that piece of muscle that's between your anus and your vagina for women, and between the penis and the testicles and the anus for men. And in yoga, they tell you to ignite, and that means, and it's one muscle, like, you know, it's connected to a lot of other muscles, but it's one muscle. And I remember it took me weeks to feel that proper connection of like being able to constrict, like to what's the right word? I can't think of the right word off the top of my head, but contract that particular muscle. Like I was like contracting everything, like my glutes, my vagina, like there's everything moving down there except, or it was all moving at once and not singularly. And it took me ages and ages and ages. And I just remember thinking that's so strange, because I'm sure that at some point that connection wasn't so foreign, but we've been so conditioned to be disconnected from our body that it's not like you just move your finger anymore. Like if you really want to tune in, um, and actually connect, you know, listening to symptoms, listening to our emotions, paying attention to our breath, it takes work. And it doesn't have to be a lot of work, but because we've become so disconnected, we also now aren't as aware of symptoms when they're arising, or of the emotions that come with it. And you often hear so many people in perimenopause, you know, or menopause. I don't know so much menopause, but in peri, um, of this rage that people are feeling, or they suddenly hate their husbands, and they have these hot flushes, and they have all these symptoms, and they come out of nowhere. And I'm like, did they really come out of nowhere? Or were you just not paying attention and connected with your body when it was giving you the little flicker, the little warning light was coming up on the dashboard? And, you know, we don't only see this in perimenopause, we see this with disease. We are so disconnected that we don't see these things coming. And then it's like suddenly it's a huge red flashing light in front of us, and we're like, well, where did that come from? When we could have been supporting ourselves for a longer period, and it doesn't become a big red flashing light because you're already tending to a symptom before it becomes a warning light. And so that's where I feel that it's really important to create connection within our bodies earlier, so that when we do get to these places and these transitions, be it perimenopause or anything, anything in life. Like I lost my mum recently. Being aware, like, oh, I've just stood in the kitchen and started crying, and it wasn't because of dinner, it's because I'm missing my mum. Or, you know, and being aware and being, okay, I'm going to allow these tears to flow. This has got nothing to do with the onions I'm chopping, instead of burying these emotions, allowing them to come out. And again, be it with perimenopause, like, am I holding back my rage, and that's what's causing these hot flushes? Or is it a hormone thing? Like, where do I start feeling these hot flushes come in? Am I in the middle of a heated argument with someone or in a place where I don't feel comfortable, or is it really just coming out of nowhere? And I think when we can start being connected to our body and listening, it makes everything a lot easier on the other side, because we're like, oh, there's a reason for this. I'm not losing my mind. My body's talking to me and my heart is talking to me and I'm feeling something and there's an emotion, or I'm coming down with being sick, and it makes us feel less crazy, I think, for lack of a better word, because when we understand what our body is communicating, we can honor it. And I think that that's something that we're missing so often, is that honoring of the transitions, of the emotions, of the symptoms, and giving ourselves love and grace to allow that to flow, that to happen, that to heal.
Become fearless about perimenopause by learning to trust the process and build your own holistic toolkit so you can reconnect to the wisdom of your body. Whether you're in your 30s or 40s, are in perimenopause now or not, preparing for a healthy, confident, and empowered menopause rite of passage starts now. Perimenopause, the process of hormonal change, begins slowly from the age of 35 onwards, taking many years to complete. You might not see outward signs yet, but like puberty in reverse, changes are happening, and gathering support, knowledge, wisdom, and tools is essential. Introducing Fearless, our one-day perimenopause power retreat for women seeking a holistic, expansive approach to supporting your well-being in body, mind, and soul, and sisterhood. Join us in Mittagong, Southern Highlands, New South Wales, this International Women's Day, 8th of March, for a powerful one-day experience where we'll be covering a whole broad range of topics and experiences, knowledge, wisdom, embodiment, journeys, and ritual. Held in an intimate sacred circle of women, you will leave feeling informed, empowered, connected, and even excited for this powerful phase of your life. Right now, until the end of March, we have early bird tickets available. Save $100 and use Afterpay to spread the cost. Come and join us now. We'll see you there at Fearless.
Another thing I often hear a lot about perimenopause, or, turning 40, which typically we're told that perimenopause can start at 35, is there's a big dismantling of self and a big, like, I thought that this was the journey I was on. And now I realize I've been people pleasing my whole life. And I haven't been honoring who I am as a woman, as a person, as a mother, as a sister, as a daughter. And I've just been I need to pull that apart and then actually work out, who the hell am I? Who am I honoring? And again, if we're more connected and more paying attention to our body and our emotions, that transition can be gentler.
I was just reminded of a couple of things there where I was listening, and I was just reminded that my daughter's school teacher said last week, a phrase that I've heard of, but I'm just really seeing the echo of it here in this conversation. That all behavior is communication. So instead of
Mm.
looking at the behavior as being a problem, what's it trying to tell us? And it's the same thing, isn't it? It's like our body's symptoms are trying to tell us something, and our behaviors and rage is it's communicating something. It's like, what's underneath all of this? Instead of feeling ashamed of the rage or being afraid of our rage, just for one example, or the hot flushes, it's communication. And I'm also reflecting on the fact that, like I said, I'm turning 40 this year. I've actually been doing this work for such a long time, questioning, all that inner work, like, who am I? What is my
Mm.
path? Healing all of the wounded behaviors, taking back my power in all of the lots of different ways. I kind of really like having that hard, close look at myself. Um, and, I've been doing that for years. And so I feel like, as I'm coming to this stage of life, sure I'm going to be met with moments where I'm like feeling grief, feeling lost, feeling scared, feeling confused. But the idea of turning 40 does not terrify me in the least. I feel really excited about it because I feel ready for it. And I think this is like another example of what we're talking about with perimenopause. It's like when we fear something and when we're
Mm.
kind of like, oh, giving it power, like this thing's going to be bad or this thing's going to be hard, or we're in denial about, how we feel about aging, how we feel about um, stepping out of one phase of life and into another, what it means about our identity. What does it mean to be 40 or perimenopausal, and not in that younger sort of phase of life? Like what do these things, what is it communicating to you, like your response to them about how you feel about yourself? And, when you feel set and stable and like, the ground is secure in one phase of life or one role or whatever it is, when there's change, that can really derail us. And I think that we're really disconnected with our bodies, as you were saying. I think we're really disconnected with change as well. I think our world is so good. There's so many opportunities for us to have so much control over things. And we actually really struggle with control, not having control. So I feel like, these are all stories about, you selling your house right now, me approaching my 40th birthday. Um, stories of like what it's like to move into this perimenopausal phase. They're all invitations to see ourselves differently and to stop like holding on tightly to the way we thought things should be. And so it's tools that we're talking about of like, okay, how can I really be with this change and meet this change and embrace this change, for the good and for the unknown, um, instead of seeing these things as times where we're going to lose something. Can we see it as a time when we're going to gain something?
Oh yeah, I 100% feel that with like, and that's what I want to share with women in this is the empowerment that we can feel around it. So you mentioned control, and it's like, well, we don't have to be, quote unquote, out of control in perimenopause. We can take action. We can step into what part of this can we take, and I don't want to say control of, but lack of a better word, control of, because if we're the ones advocating for ourselves and not relying on somebody else to be making the decisions for us because we're educated, we know our bodies, we're in communication with our bodies. A doctor, say, might be sitting there going, no, you're wrong. And I've got a history of autoimmune disease. I've got a child with Down syndrome. I have had a lot of arguments with doctors, and to be the strongest thing I've always had is knowledge to be able to advocate for myself. And that is where we are able to be empowered within ourselves, within the decision making, and not relying on somebody else to be making the decisions for us. And I think that's really important. And I think it's something that the awareness around perimenopause and the conversations that are happening is something that's really, really important and has been such a gift for us that we're not told to be quiet about it anymore. We're actually told to speak up. And with that speaking up, I think it's really important to have our toolkits, to have our knowledge, to have um our I don't want to say arguments ready, but like just not take no for an answer. Like not for someone to say, here, you have to take HRT because that is the only option for you. Or no, you can't take HRT because it's not good for you. And then being able to say, actually, I've done my research, or I have been following, or I have attended this amazing fearless workshop and I learnt, you know, and I think, having that's power. Knowledge is power. And I think if we walk into perimenopause with knowledge, then that gives us power and it makes us feel empowered within ourselves and we can speak up for ourselves. And I think that, often as women, we're silenced and we don't have to be anymore. The paradigm's so changing around that. And I think it's just very powerful to be able to stand in it and say, okay, no, this is what I want. This is how I want to navigate it. Oh, shoot, it took me out. Whatever took me out this week, I'm feeling exhausted or, I don't know. One of my symptoms that I've got is my hypermobility has gone ridiculous. And I spent one day in considerable amount of pain because I tripped over so embarrassingly. It was the most ridiculous tripping over in the world. Anyway, my shoe got caught on the inside of my trouser leg. And so I'm walking out. I started feeling awkward having this conversation with this gentleman. And then so I turned around, and when I get awkward in social situations, everything goes awkward, like my body, my language, my everything. And so I'm like awkwardly stepping away from this conversation. That wasn't a bad conversation. I just didn't know how to navigate it so eloquently. And so then I trip and I'm like, oh, good. Okay. Nobody saw. Next step, I did the exact same thing. I was like, oh my God, I literally tripped within 2 steps. And, but because of this symptom that I have of the hypermobility, I was like, oh, I felt it. My entire back and pelvis and everything just shifted. And I was like, far out. That wasn't exactly what I said. And it took me out for a solid day because I was in pain. But I had the knowledge to know, I had the understanding to give my body grace. Like, this is the transition it's going through. This isn't going to last forever. This is just a moment in time. Maybe the universe is telling me to rest for a day and this is the only way I'm listening. Like, maybe, but just honor, okay, I've got this hypermobility. I have to step more into my strength training, which I'm doing. And I just, okay, like, it is what it is. Instead of fighting it, like when you fight some of these symptoms, it makes it worse. Like if you're angry about something, then it just makes it worse. Whereas if we go, okay, I'm just going to honor this, that this is the transition I'm going through, this hypermobility, it sucks. But what is it teaching me? Like, what can I take from this? And not fight it. Like if what we resist persists.
For sure. And I think that's like such an important piece, like a mantra I'm going to kind of hold on to as well. So I really love that. I just want to tease out a couple of things. So the one that you were just saying there, like really honoring, what your body's telling you and showing you and not feeling angry about it, because then we're just activating our whole nervous system as well and causing that to really stay in our body and, beating ourselves up. Like we're not, like we need to really trust our bodies, even when it's doing things that we don't love, even when it's showing us things that are hard to hear. It's like giving ourselves that compassion and grace and then tending to what it's really asking from us. And the other thing I really want to just kind of underline, I think, is the conversation there that we were just having on control. So what I'm really hearing is like, I think there's going to be elements where we're going to feel out of control and like, what is this change? But actually within that, like you say, there's an invitation to go, okay, things are changing. I can't stop this. So there's that like loss of control almost, or like relinquishing of control, surrendering. Yep. But actually within this, we do have opportunities. Whilst we can't stop it, we can't fix it, we can't say, I'm going to experience it exactly like this and nothing else is going to come along and derail any moment of that. It's going to be perfect.
Like, this is my timeline. It's not going to be derailed.
Exactly. But there are opportunities within this to step into autonomy, sovereignty, self-responsibility, self-advocacy. We can step forwards with knowledge, wisdom, tools, community and support as well, rather than having to battle this, having that kind of, well, I don't believe in battling it, but the attitude of like, I'm going to be a warrior through this. I'm going
Mhm.
to do this by myself. I'm going to, we have to suffer in silence. Like, no, those days are gone. Like, we're in a different era now. Actually, it's like, the return of the mothers group, but for perimenopause, and those, like, really leaning on sisterhood. Because I also think that, sisterhood is something that we could, we all need, but I think it's something that can be quite, um I just feel like, if we kind of separate ourselves from each other, or those wounds of separation, those wounds of not feeling good enough, self-worth, all of that is going to really come up. And so the more that we live those stories, the more we separate ourselves from everyone. And actually, there's an invitation to really come together in our vulnerability to support each other and learn and move through this. And that's something that we're really bringing through Fearless. It's like we want this to be a place of community and support and sisterhood.
Yeah, and not victimhood,
Hmm.
because there's so many opportunities in any of our life paths to become a victim of something. Again, the control, it's not my choice. Um, or stepping into the, how am I going to navigate this with the most grace or power or empowerment, or, choose your, is it a verb?
Intention.
No,
Hmm.
intention. Like verb, noun. Um, and I think being surrounded by like-minded women in every stage of life is so vital. And again, social media and things like that have given us so many gifts and not gifts. Um, and while the online has given us communities online, this in person, like literally our nervous system and our hormones release chemicals when we are in the physical presence of other people. So while we feel like we've got this like massive communities online, we're in a time of society that people feel more isolated than ever. So that coming together of actually sitting in a room physically with other women that are navigating it, having these conversations, having these shared experiences is so juicy for our bodies. Like a hug, the endorphins and oxytocin that is released in physical touch. And I have to say, Charlotte, you and Sophie both give like the most amazing hugs. And it's like, it's an immediate, like, I feel it in my body when I've walked into your circles or, caught up with Sophie and you get a hug. And I literally do feel it within my body that there is a shift, because physical touch and, you don't have to hug one another if you're not a hugger, that's fine. But even just sitting side by side and having those conversations releases chemicals in our bodies that support mental health, support physical well-being. You look at blue zones and things like that around the world. Community is a pillar of that, of the well-being. And I just think that it's something that we've lost in modern day society. We're all rushing around and we're connecting on a text message or via an email or on social and sending each other memes, but we're not actually having the conversations anymore.
Guilty.
Oh, same, 100%. And so, um, yeah, I think that just creating that space to come together is so vital. And, I think it's a really important element of Fearless. I think it's one of the most important elements of it, because while we're going to be like geared up with all this knowledge, like we can sort of we can navigate it ourselves and eventually find it eventually. Um, it would take more time than sitting with, experts in the areas, but it's it's something that we can do. What you can't necessarily do on your own is coming together in a community, being supported and being nourished through that. And yeah, I feel so important. I feel so important. Um, I feel like it's so important that we do come together as women. And I just think it's a skill that we've lost. And
Mm.
as I mentioned before, I've got a child with Down syndrome, and it's something that I used to see in my early 30s when he was a lot younger, the isolation that so many women end up feeling. And I'm seeing it again in this stage of the kids are older, we're running around in different ways, and we're again isolated. Um, and it's sad. And I think that there is opportunity for that to shift. And I'm excited to be part of something creating that shift. So yeah, there's so many aspects to nervous system regulation, to hormone regulation, to our bodies. So while we're navigating all of these shifts, again, we have the opportunities to create change around the shifts and to nourish our bodies. And one of the things that I'm talking about in Fearless is nervous system regulation, is the regulation of our vagus nerve. Is, we're constantly living in fight and flight. And when we're in that state, we're not necessarily connected to our bodies. We're not connected to how our bodies are responding because we're so in the doing and not in the being that we don't hear. And it's proven that when we are in a better state of being and when we are nurturing our nervous system, that our health outcomes are so much better because our hormones aren't all over the place in reaction rather than response. And, we know that through extreme stress, our menstrual cycles can be disrupted. We know that when we are in high stress situations, be it job, family situations, isolation, that we can cause disease within our body, which ultimately leads to disease. So by just using some really simple tools, we can navigate these transitions in life, one major one being perimenopause, with more ease. And I think that sometimes we think that it's going to be so difficult or only a doctor can give us a script to make some of these things go away, when sometimes actually just like breathing for 2 minutes a day can actually create a huge shift. And we all want a magic pill. And in a big way, nervous system regulation is a magic pill. It's just one that we do for ourselves. And but we don't think of it that way. We think, oh, I've got to do something. It's like training. Oh, I've got to lift weights. It's like, well, the outcomes of that and the benefits of it are so huge. Like, why don't we just allow 5 minutes a day to do that instead of popping a pill? Or alongside popping a pill. you know.
So you're talking about breathing, and you are a breathwork practitioner, um, amongst other things. Tell us a little bit more about how we can really simply just drop into our breath to like support our bodies. Like, how simple can it be? Because I think you're right. I think, it reminds me of like exercising too, it's like, oh, but like the hardest thing is doing it, is getting to the gym, but you never regret exercising on the other side. Like, it always feels amazing and you're always so glad you did. It's the anticipation of these things, isn't it? And we put more energy into resisting things
Mm,
than just doing it.
yeah.
I'd love to hear more.
So much more resistance. Um, you know, 9, 10 years ago when I first started off in this path, I used to health coach. And even back then, because of my yoga training, the first thing I used to give every single client was teaching them how to do 3 rounds of breath, because of that what stress causes in our body and through our nervous system, the dysregulation of the hormone imbalance, of the digestive imbalance, of what it does to our brain. Like, literally coming back to just taking 3 rounds of breath can create such a huge shift in our bodies. And even now, like when someone comes to me for one-on-one breath work, the first thing I say to them after they leave is just take 3 rounds of breath every now and again. And the tool I give to so many is, when you're sitting at a red light in the car, just 3 rounds of breath. Every red light, just stop and just do 3 rounds of breath. And by 3 rounds of breath, I mean literally slowly taking an inhale into your abdominal cavity. So drawing that breath really down, getting out of the shoulders and the chest area, drawing it down to the diaphragm area, allowing that to expand gently and just counting it to say like 5, whatever feels comfortable that is slow. Pause for just a beat and then allow that breath to also then slowly come out through the nose. That is it. Do 3 rounds of that and it completely changes your state. If you don't drive, do it when you pop the kettle on or when you go to the toilet, or you just pick an activity that you do regularly through the day, or, a point. And before you know it, your nervous system starts craving it because it realizes like, okay, at first we're resisting it because it doesn't feel natural because we're not doing it. So your body's like, what the heck is this calm stuff? Like,
Mm.
you know, I need my shot of espresso, not this. But again, afterwards you feel better. You're like, my head feels clearer. Like I've the racing thoughts have maybe paused for a moment, or my heart rate doesn't feel like it's about to leap out through my throat. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe this strange calmer feeling is actually all right. And so you keep doing it, keep doing it. You build that muscle, just like when you're going to the gym and you're lifting weights, you build that muscle, you build the memory within your nervous system, within your brain, within your hormones. And then one day you're sitting in a meeting and you're like feeling a bit of rage coming on, and suddenly you realize that your body's just taken a deep breath. And you're like, oh, whoa, my body's starting to regulate itself. How amazing is that?
Yeah.
And it plays out in everything. Suddenly you're like going to have an argument with your husband. Instead of, reacting, you take a breath. Or the kids are doing something that's driving you batshit crazy, and you're like, I'm just going to take a moment and take a breath, and then I'm going to respond. Or I'm going to, and then like you could be taking it further. Like, I'm going to take a breath and listen to what my body's telling me right now. But you just start with 3 rounds of breath. That's it. It's like 2 minutes and it's life changing and it's free. That's the other thing I always say to everyone. It's free. It's accessible in every single situation in life. And,
It's
like,
quick.
no, it's quick, and nobody, you can be sitting anywhere and nobody knows that you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like you're reaching into your bag and popping a pill and everyone's going to see, like, whatever you're doing, or you're like getting your essential oils and rubbing them all over your body because I'm like, it's like,
Mm.
it's like you can do it anywhere and nobody has to realize that you're feeling stressed. So you're just taking a minute. It's like, okay, just taking a pause. It's all good. Um, and that,
It's
that
like the
is,
gateway, isn't it? It feels like the gateway in. Yeah. It's like so easy. And then, like you say, before you know it, like I do it with my kids, I'm like, "Ah." And the kids, when they hear me like breathing, they're like, no one bats an eyelid anymore. It's like, oh, there's mom. It's like, yeah, like that's my cue. Like my body's wanting to regulate. And then others start as well. And it's like, it can be just helpful. So in Fearless, will you be going, like what will you be sharing then? Tell us about what you're going to be offering on the day.
that. First of all, just connecting with the breath. And while I do teach practical functional breathing, I also do take people on breathwork journeys. And somatics is about listening to our body. It's about connecting with the body. It's about using different gateways within the body of opening up our emotional pathways. So really, I just want to share with women in our group and, here and now about how, when we do tune in, because we've forgotten how to, what it allows for us to acknowledge and the power that it gives us to have that self-awareness and, the advocacy it gives us because we're doing it for ourselves. And in that ability of taking those breaths, pausing, we're able to respond instead of react and take back our sovereignty, take back our power, take in that moment, like collect ourselves. And then, the outcomes of that are healthier bodies, having less cortisol pumping through our bodies. You know, just through breath, I have seen in my training transformations from women in their health. And it's phenomenal when we just recognize that pausing, that pause can actually open up everything. The transformation, the transitions, the power that we hold within ourselves. We can find self-love. You know, it's so powerful, yet we rarely pause for it. And I think that's what I really want to bring to the women in our group is that opportunity to tune in and just be with a thought or with our breath and share the power of that. It's just, I mean, you know, can't stop, won't stop. I just, it's so important, and it's such a gift. And I'm excited for women to reconnect with that, because it changes the path that we are able to walk forward through these transitions. And instead of being a victim to symptoms, we can actually be advocates for ourselves.
Amazing. Yeah, I can't wait. It's really exciting. And I think that, you know, rather than just giving off like a few little like surface level things that we can, you know, do to kind of connect with ourselves that don't really make any difference. What we're bringing here is knowledge and tools and wisdom that, you know, really, really do offer transformation and really deep support, and not just on a physical level, on a mental, emotional, and spiritual level as well, and bringing in so much social support. Fearless is just something that we're all really, really passionate about. It's not about, um, you know, kind of being able to beat anything that might come up and, you know, ah, it's going to be, you know, something that we're kind of going to dominate over. I guess it's more this sort of, you know, building up your toolkit so that as and when things come up for you, you're not surprised. You understand what the process of perimenopause is, the phases. You can understand where you're at in that journey. You can understand by dropping into your body, like how you're feeling, and understand the cues that your body's giving you. So, oh, I'm feeling like this. Like, interesting. What's going on? How am I feeling? And what do I need? And bringing in this really, like all these multidimensional tools from Sophie's bringing in the plant allies and the herbs and lifestyle support, and you, Sinead, with all the nervous system support, the regulation, breath being one example of that. And this ability, this increased capacity for us to really sit with what is. And then me, I'm going to be bringing in this opportunity for us to understand how our rites of passages and our menstrual cycles so far um, are teaching us how to be with this change and be with this alchemy that's happening, and be able to have a space to kind of release, I guess, what we you know, our fears and our concerns about this, and to just really claim the power of this as a rite of passage, and to have an experience as well, a journey, embodiment journey with the enchantress and the wild woman, so we can just really connect with the qualities that we're being invited to meet in this phase of life, so that ultimately we don't feel out of our power and derailed and, you know, like chaos is inevitable. We can be with what's coming through, um, over these, you know, the next 10 years, potentially, depending on how old you are and where you're at. Um, and just set yourself up in advance, with this level of support and care and sisterhood. I just think, you know, like every community needs this kind of work and
Mhm.
an approach available to them. And I'm really excited and proud to be co-creating with you, Sinead. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Same.
We've
And
got
I think
go.
one thing that you just mentioned, and we didn't really touch on, but capacity. When we regulate our nervous system, when we have the knowledge, when we have the connection to womb that you're bringing as well, we create so much more capacity within ourselves to do more, to be more. And I think that's so powerful. And it's something we didn't touch on as such in this conversation, but, something to really think on, that when we're not wired in these places of like lack of power, lack of knowledge, feeling victim, the feeling of overwhelm takes away the capacity that we have to actually step into. And I think that could be an entire podcast in itself, but I think it's something to also acknowledge here, is that when we do have the knowledge, the regulation, the support with community, the load doesn't feel as heavy.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we'll go into that in Fearless as well. I'm sure it's going to come up, this conversation
100%.
about capacity, because like you say, it's such an important one, and it's so fundamental to regulation. So we've got tickets on sale now. If you're in Sydney, Canberra, New South Wales, want to come join us in the Southern Highlands, if you want to even fly in perhaps from somewhere else to join us, it's happening on Saturday, 8th of March, 2025, International Women's Day in Mittagong. We've got tickets on sale right now with an early bird available as well as Afterpay to spread the cost if you'd like to. So we would absolutely love to welcome you in. If you want to go back to the previous episode, you can listen to me chatting with Sophie Gleitzman, who's a women's hormone health naturopath. That was a really in-depth and beautiful conversation to listen to as well. And I'll pop the link in the show notes for where you can come and find out more about Fearless. So Sinead, thanks so much for joining us for this really, really amazing conversation. I've just really loved everything we've talked about, and I feel so inspired and like energized and excited to bring this day through. Is there anything you'd just like to add, where we can find you, what else you're offering, anything else to add before we close?
Yeah. Well, if you are interested in breathwork and diving,
Sure.
diving into a bit of that expansion and growth and journey, I do host those in person, but also online. So you through Zoom. So you can book in with me via sineadquinn.com. And what else? Oh, I do offer monthly groups as well. So for the moment, that's my offerings. It is shifting and changing and growing throughout this year, and I'm excited. I'm excited for where this is all going. I'm excited for hosting Fearless with you ladies. I think it's going to be epic, and I'm just super grateful that we all got together and are able to offer this to everyone. I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I think it's really lovely to co-create. And it feels like, sisterhood in action for us all to just step into our gifts and our perspectives and really bring this day together. So thank you for the invitation and the experience of doing this with you. And Sinead, where are you on Instagram?
Sinead Quinn Official.
Cool. I'll pop all this in the show notes.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And I hope that you're feeling more fearless in your own preparation and understanding and appreciation of perimenopause, no matter how old you are or wherever you're at. And if you are available to come join us, we will see you in circle. Thank you so much for listening, my love. To reclaim your wild feminine power, magic, and flow is an act of sacred rebellion, and it's needed now more than ever. Share this episode with a sister, share on socials, leave a review, and support this podcast and movement to grow and deepen around the world. To discover, activate, and embody your sacred feminine leadership archetype, take the quiz now at charlottequanto.com/quiz to find if you're a mystic, muse, connector, or challenger to become the feminine leader you're born to be. And until next time, my love, be devoted to your body as guide, your cycle as oracle, and your sisterhood as allies.